Hello and welcome back to another Reaconteur video, and we just got the Deepwoken Verse 3 Direct, which has shown a lot of very cool stuff to us, and we've also been told a lot of very important stuff, so I can't wait to see how it all comes together. This video is going to be compiling some of the most important things that I got from that, because it's pretty long, and I just don't think most people want to watch 2.5 hours, especially when a lot of it's kind of just dodging questions. Anyway, make sure to subscribe, since only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. And along with that, I'm currently live at twitch.tv/Reaconteur. I don't feel like screaming because it's 9 in the morning. Now let us get straight into it. Alright, so first of all, and this is huge, but Agamatsu is confirmed to be currently working on the Chef Oath. Not as in it's going to come later, not as in it's going to come with verse 4. He is currently, as of now, working on the Chef Oath. So the guy in the comments of every video ever, rejoice. For the Chef Oath is not only confirmed, but is also currently in development, which is crazy because I never thought we'd see the day. Along with that, we have some weird news about Reaconteur. So we all know he was working on other projects. Curse gear. Oh, God. Oh, what was that? That's something in my throat. Anyway, he was trying to essentially say in a positive way, yeah, I've been working on other stuff, leaving the team without leadership, so I kind of just came back because people were complaining. But yes, he was working on other games, but Deepwoken has now returned to his main focus. Now, along with verse 3, they also had brief talks of verse 4. Now this is quite interesting because they said that the next roadmap after verse 3, so basically verse 4, unless they want to name it something else, would include the Central Luminant. Now this is huge. The Central Luminant is the most important Luminant in the game outside of, you know, the Etrian and Eastern, which are technically one Luminant, but we don't get into that here. Regardless, the Central Luminant is the home of the Central Authority, and there's tons of super important places in the Central Luminant that I can't wait to see. First of all, the Central Authority's main Imperial designated area is here, obviously, which means we can finally potentially meet Dralis Heir, the head of the Central Authority, which is really cool because he's kind of shrouded in mystery. People aren't even sure if he actually exists because nobody really sees him outside the chain of command. But honestly, I'm a bit more excited for the Lullaby Isles, which houses their leader, queen, and religious prophet, the Lady Confessor, who is a tyrannical dictator sort of leader for the Chrysids and such who live in the Lullaby Isles, and I think it'd be super cool to see her as a sort of boss that you have to overthrow because of her tyrannical and cult-like ways. Along with that, the addition of the Central Luminant in lore means that the Central Authority has finally breached the Etrian Luminant, which means we can finally maybe get the Etrian Authority war arc that I've been wanting for so long. For those of you who don't know, the game's kind of been foreshadowing this huge war arc for a long time, with the Maestro Avantgarde talking about how he needs to form powerful allies, much like yourself, to prepare for when the Lord Regent needs to be killed. Not because he can't kill the Lord Regent by himself, but because without him in the throne, the Central Authority would surely win their raid against Etris. So he wants these allies to help defend Etris when the Authority inevitably raids them after the Lord Regent is killed. Which means this could be its own massive world event, maybe a huge boss fight, maybe even be like the introduction for Dralis Heir and he comes in to personally fight on the battlefield and you have to defeat him or something like that. Now along with that, the devs also discussed a new ending possibility for the current Etris raid event where the Authority wins. So it seems like they're really headed towards this sort of war arc, which could be super cool. And also the Summer Company origin is likely to be coming after verse 3, so likely in verse 4. And I can't wait because I think that's going to be a huge addition potentially, given how much technological advancement the Summer Company is capable of making, because they're one of the most technologically advanced factions in the game, because even though they don't have like the manpower of people like the Central Authority, they have a lot of really good engineers that make a lot of stuff for them and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Now excuse the yap, but the devs said that the Void Sea and Void Tower stuff are not going to be coming this update, which is sad, but they confirmed that they'd be focusing on the Void Sea stuff around the same time as the Central Illuminant, which means verse 4 has a somewhat rough looking timeline in which there is a great deal of content. But back to speaking on verse 3 real quick, we've gotten 3 cool sneaks that I want to talk about. One, the racial divergences, and specifically the racial divergence for Vesperians was leaked, where they have these pincers, and race divergences are going to be racial progressions and probably not fully obtainable races. So for those of you who played Rogue Lineage, you might remember how, like, when you reached a certain amount of days alive on a slot, you would get new abilities or the capability of unlocking racial passives and abilities and stuff. It's basically going to be like that, but it'll also provide new visuals for your race, because unlike Rogue Lineage, which didn't really add much visually, if anything, like I think Casprins got like a few scales on their face or something like that, but other than that, not really much. We also got a leak of a literal fucking dragon. I get 2 F words to be PG-13. Anyway, it seems to be potentially inspired by the scaled elemental dragons from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, with them seemingly flying around randomly and being a cool world event. They also said said that they wanted to rework the model of the World Serpent, so I think there is a tiny chance that they rework the World Serpent entirely into this snake dragon boss we see. But who knows, I may be wrong and honestly hope I am, and actually I think I am, because I think this really doesn't fit what the World event was initially, being, you know, a water boss, and this is flying, so it's definitely not the World Serpent, so you know. And also we got a rough map of Layer 3 in which we see the entrance, a city known as the City of Flames, Coral Fiend's Garden, which may have either Pleatsky or some sort of Coral Fiend scion that we fight, and then the Falling Steps, whatever that is. But yeah, this is going to be an open world layer, so it's going to be much more like Depths Layer 1 and also, you know, Lumen Overworld. So yeah, it won't be a dungeon like Layer 2, and it will be directly accessible from the Overworld, which means you'll be able to go straight from the Overworld down to Layer 3. My best bet is it's going to be accessible through Miner's Landing, but we'll see. Then of course the Hive Origin, it will finally be getting added, and of course Raguzer said he maybe wanted to make some sort of Vigil's origin and progression, but in my opinion that would probably end up being some sort of like filler origin, I'm not gonna lie. But we're also getting a second Great Hive tree, and seeing as how in this direct they talked about Lifeweave being added at some point as well, and you know, it having paths, it's very likely the second Great Hive will house the Lifeweave attunements, obtainment method, which is super cool to see. Can't wait for every mantra to lifesteal and stun with roots that grow under and around and grab your legs and making you eat a 400 damage stacked crit. Oh, speaking of crits, they're reworking most of the Hallowtide weapon crits and giving them some new stuff, just to make them more unique, I guess. But also they said that the Central Hive would be an underground route network that allows for travel between Great Hives, which means we could get a super cool underground route city with a super cool earthy aesthetic. They're working on the Ceramade Hollow as well, and said that they were inspired by Deep Rock Galactic, so the Ceramade Hollow will be getting at least one unique boss pretty soon, as well as adding resource management mechanics and risks to going deeper, much like Deep Rock Galactic, which is very cool. And also, while they are working on new origins for other factions, every faction's main base will be getting an expansion, which is supposed to be nearly or on par with the Fort Merit editions. So the map is going to be a lot more lively, even in just like Lumen and the Eastern and Etrian Luminance, and it'll really feel like a much more fleshed out world, which I think is really cool because world building and lore have always been a big part of Deepwoken's identity that I feel like have been a bit neglected in the more recent times, because the devs kind of put that off for a while to make a new legendary weapon every week, you know, but I'm happy that they're kind of returning to their roots with major additions and stuff like that. Anyway, speaking of legendary weapons, new Iron Sing legendary. I don't know why this was asked about specifically or why this even like matters to anyone, but yeah, we're getting a new Iron Sing weapon. We don't know if it's a legendary, but seeing as how it's an attunement weapon, it's probably a legendary, unless they want to break some of their own rules and retcon some lore. I can't wait, man. We totally need more Iron Sing users and legendary weapons. Anyway, we're also getting new Bloodrun paths and maybe a new Shadow path from K1. And I forgot to mention it because it was completely overshadowed by the Chef Oath, but War Master Oath will also be coming soon. Not with verse 4, with verse 3. So this means that we're likely to get new content and characterization revolving around Warden Jericho, seeing as how he is currently the only user of it in-game. It does make the most sense, which means since the source of War Master's power is something or maybe a group known as the High Order, I believe that's what they're called, it's likely that we may get to see into this High Order or whatever it's called, and we'll see what sort of power source the Central Authority truly has at their disposal. I'm thinking it's got to do with like the Lightborns and Celestials, but we'll find out. Along with that, there will be new mounts. They said that they wanted to make some sort of authority mount. No idea what that's going to be. Maybe they'll just add horses to Deepwoken. But they also said that there was including the potential for a Lionfish water mount, which would be awesome because I mean, how cool would it be to do new water fights if they let you use the Lionfish to attack and stuff? I doubt it, honestly. I think it's just going to be like a faster way to get around the boats, and maybe you could do it personally and like carry it around because, you know, not everyone wants to summon a boat all the time, and maybe it could be faster as boats to be like a trade-off. Like you need multiple people, get a boat. You don't, use your Lionfish. But it would be funny if you could like shoot Saros with it and stuff, but I doubt they're going to do that. Now, along with that, Dixeria said he wanted to polish up some oaths, which means we will finally be getting lore for stuff like Link Strider. For those of you who don't know, Link Strider's lore was never finished because the person who made it doesn't work on Deepwoken anymore and quit or was fired or something. I think there was some controversy around it. Regardless, it was kind of just neglected for the last, I don't know, 6, maybe 7 years. And it never got an actual finished lore edition, so it literally just didn't have lore for a super long time. But more than just lore, the O's themselves will be polished up and slightly reworked to be better or at least more engaging, and the ones that are underutilized will probably be getting some reworks to make them more fun and better to use as a whole. Along with some legendary weapons, which, yeah, that's good. That's probably a good thing. Now, the thing that I'm kind of the most hyped for, which is probably going to be coming out pretty recently, or not recently, but soon, is the Iron Vow, which they said would have unique bosses and interactions, kind of like Terraria Hardcore, how it has stuff like Plantera and unique fights that you can't fight normally, which is super cool, especially because they said Iron Vow builds would be made differently and they'd likely be more gimmicky, whatever that entails. But they'd also have major upsides and downsides in comparison to normal builds, so it sounds like there's going to be some big differences with this oath, which is pretty cool. So it's likely going to be a completely unique experience to play in the game, and that sounds quite awesome, and I can't wait to see it. I might even come back to Deepwoken and play more than like, I don't know, 30 minutes twice a month. I'm sorry. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. New song cover coming soon for all YouTube members, but for now, shoutouts to YouTube members of tier 2 or higher: Green, Brick, Goobka, High Card, Wizzy My Tizzy, Philip, Axelor, Flying Noodle 559, and Drizzy Drake Fan. Check out my live channel. Stop fucking bothering me on my other channels. It's annoying, because you guys know I have other channels, and some of you are finding one of them, and every fucking comment is like, is this Reaconteur? Shut the fuck up, man. Yeah, it's me. You can hear it in my voice, right? Well, maybe can you stop being fucking annoying? This video is no longer PG-13 because it's actually so fucking annoying getting your comments about that. Like, dude, I'm making those videos to connect with people, like tell stories and stuff, and then I've got idiots commenting about me on this channel. Don't interact with me like that, or I'm just gonna ban you from commenting. It's actually just annoying. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Have an amazing day, and goodbye.